Welcome to the Dental 18 podcast. We're your hosts, Kiera Dent
and Dr. Mark Costas.
Mark and I had this crazy idea that maybe we could combine a dentist and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. And Dental 18 podcast was created.
I'm a practicing dentist, a multiple practice owner, a dental performance coach, and the founder of the Dental Success Institute.
I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, current practice owner, and international dental consultant. Mark and I don't just understand you, we are you.
Our goal is to positively impact the world of dentistry by sharing our lessons learned from the road in hundreds of dental offices.
Two perspectives, one mission, to help dental professionals reach their full potential. Welcome to the Dental 18 podcast. All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Dental 18 podcast. I am Kiera Dent with Mark Costas doing a car cast today. Those of you who know me and Mark, we travel a ton. So Mark, tell us where you're driving from today.
I am on the 17 northbound towards Prescott, Arizona, just leaving Scottsdale. We had family little get together last night, and we all stayed in an Airbnb down here, a big old house with about 15 people shacking up. And now I'm heading back up to do a little dentistry for a couple of my associates that are on vacation. So I'm going to be the cover guy today up in Prescott, and then coming back down to spend some more time with the family here in Scottsdale.
And I'm sure so many people can relate to that. Like office managers, I remember being the OM that covered for when all my employees went on vacation. And it was like, okay, there are perks of every job, and there are also pitfalls and like the hard parts of every job. So Mark, way to be the pinch hitter dentist today, at least, you know.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And you know what? And people say there are rumors out there that multitasking is not effective. Now, I'm going to tell you that multitasking may not be safe all the time. For instance, when you're holding a microphone while driving 75 miles an hour on the freeway in the fast lane, and people are staring at me, especially this trucker that I just drove by. But I am multitasking. I'm not only driving to work, I'm actually getting podcasts recorded with you, Kiera Dent, and I got to catch up. I got to hear about how your Christmas vacation was. This, my friend, is the epitome of multitasking. So I have to give myself a pat on the back. But if I gave myself a pat on the back, it'd be even more dangerous.
Then it'd be like triple tasking. So, we might as well just stick with the
I'm going to do a virtual pat on the back.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you. And I know that you're giving me a virtual pat on the back as well for multitasking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm really proud of you on that. So, and I think like in my mind, when you say like, I can just picture you like cruising in your truck with the microphone up, like headphones on. Like,
yes.
I just picture myself being in the car next to you, like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Like, he must really like. Okay, great. He's karaokeing, obviously.
Yeah, clearly. Oh no, he's a podcaster. He's that dentalpreneur guy. I recognize his face.
Obviously. So for those of you who don't know me and Mark, we've had kind of a funny journey, and I tell this story now because Mark and I are good enough friends. But like some of the first times when I met Mark, I didn't even know he had a podcast, which is super embarrassing that now I have a podcast with Mark. But I remember when Mark told me that he had the Dentalpreneur podcast, I was like, oh, shoot, I really should do some research on this guy before I talk to him the next time.
Yeah.
So I definitely did a few binge podcasting. That purple thing on your phone, click that button.
Yeah. And, that was a couple years ago. So the podcast was in full effect when we first met, but it was not anything resembling what it is now. Now it's probably 10 times the size it was then as far as listenership and worldwide footprint. So yeah.
It's crazy. And that wasn't even
crazy.
that long ago. Like, look at the impact and the ripple effect that just, consistently day in, day out, putting your best work forward and the ripple effect that can have. I think that that's paramount to think of for everybody in every aspect of your life. Those small and simple things that you consistently do, I think can make a far greater impact than a lot of times we even realize that they do.
That's such a good point. You think about, I've had many startup practices. I think I've done 6 startups out of, no, that's not true. 7 startups out of 14 practices that I've owned. So exactly 50-50. And everybody that's ever done a startup knows how lonely that is in the beginning when there's like one chart, the phone's not ringing. Like the revenue for the day is like negative $42 because you did two free consultations. And, that's kind of how the podcast was. It was like, 16 people that I don't even know listen to the podcast today. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. How in the world did 16 people find out about me? And then, now if we don't get to 100,000 downloads per month, I'm super bummed, it's crazy how the world works. And that's how startup practices can be. If you treat them well and you treat the patients well, they just grow. And you look back after a handful of years and go, oh my gosh, we have something here, something that I can, really call my legacy. And hopefully the podcast will be that. But for a lot of people listening that own practices, whether you've acquired them or started them up, exactly the feeling.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think that's a great segue into our topic today of startups and how to, and also if you aren't in a startup, how to get like reviews, because reviews are that, for a podcast, it's the downloads and the listeners, and that's the traction and asking people to share and to like and to subscribe to your channel.
Yeah.
And I wanted to correlate that to a dental team and how in a team in your practice, whether it's a startup or whether it's a full-blown practice, how you can continue to grow that from a dental team perspective. Because I truly believe, and Mark, add your input on this, but I believe that every team member within a practice can adamantly ask for reviews and help grow their practice just in like you said, treating the patients well, but then also asking for those reviews in like lots of different fun ways to get those reviews up and to get that social tracking as well.
Yeah, I love this topic because I don't think that often a lot of team members realize how integral they are in building the practice. The support team sees and interacts with the patients for a greater percentage of the time than the doctor actually does. The doctor actually is just one of the many players in this orchestra that we have in creating this beautiful symphony of the patient experience. And if the doctor isn't doing a good enough job expressing how important the team is in the symphony, then he needs a little bit of work. But he or she, but the to your point, Kiera, it is so important that everybody understands their part that they play in building the practice and how important it is to be asking for reviews and have a script in place and a process in place for grabbing reviews, and that we choreograph every single touch point in the patient experience. All that stuff is so important to building this beautiful practice that you envision.
For sure. And I love, as I was listening to you, Mark, I think it's super exciting, and I hope our listeners feel the same way, of hearing a dentist perspective, and then I'll chime in on the team perspective, because for me to hear that from your perspective is a totally different viewpoint than I've ever had on reviews, and how you see it from a doctor's perspective of it is a beautiful symphony. Because in my mind, that's what I hope my doctors think. But yeah. I never really realized as a team player how much impact I had until I started owning practices and realizing I can try and be a one horse running this stagecoach, or I can have an entire team, and how much more momentum I can have if I get the whole team on board, all of us doing the same thing. And when I first had a practice in Colorado, one of the number one ways that we were able to grow that practice was through having our whole team unified, asking for those reviews, working together, but then also remembering, I remember doing a silly, I giggle at myself, but I loved the point. I had a team meeting where we talked about, we wanted our office to be like Disneyland. I'm obsessed with Disneyland, so that's why it's funny. But I really am. I was really bummed I only went 2 times in 2018 as opposed to my 6 times in 2017.
Don't get me started on my one visit to Disneyland this year. I'm gonna rain on your parade, but I won't rain on your Disneyland parade. It was awesome. It was magical. Go ahead.
It was so magical, Mark. Those fireworks, Disney just does it right. But I had this whole team meeting about how we wanted our office to be like Disneyland, because literally Disneyland, they're so intentional with everything they do. When you see somebody, they say hi to you. It is clean. They are everybody's in a great mood at Disneyland, and how there's just this feeling that it permeates the whole premise of their property, and how those are the type of offices that people rave about, that they tell their friends about, that they give unsolicited reviews for, because there's something different about that office. So in whatever way you can make your office different and stand out. I mean, our office, our doctor had a mohawk and tattoos, and we listened to like crazy music, but like our vibe, we just loved what we did at our office, and people loved that. Like, we drew crowds because of it. And every office is different. So like, differentiate yourself, because those are the types of things that people write reviews are. Those are the type of offices people want to work for. That's the glue, the cohesiveness that really makes an office different.
Totally. So what was, when you guys all got together, what kinds of things did you talk about? What was the master plan for grabbing all of these reviews, and what was the overall strategy?
So office managers, this is going to be like, and doctors, I think one of the best things we ever did for asking for reviews is we gamified it. Anything you can turn into a game, people love games and they have a ton of fun with it. So we decided that instead of spending money on external marketing as much, we were going to pay our employees to get reviews. And so we turned it into this like challenge and this scoreboard, and it was like, it just became a really fun game. So the structure at the beginning, I didn't have structure, and that was my fault. In hindsight, I should have had more structure. Mm-hmm. Things like I've watched offices. I've been working with an office recently trying to get their reviews up, and they have literally been able to get one review per day. And it's been a 5-star, amazing. And the way we did it for that office, I think this is a better example than what I personally did at the beginning. Is they have done it where they have a texting service. So they use, Legwork or Solution Reach or Yappy or whatever program is your fancy to send a text message, because the text message is a lot faster and easier. But instead of just, blindly sending out these text messages, that office has become very intentional. So first and foremost, their goal is to become this amazing practice where they are just rock solid, dazzling the patients, giving amazing customer service. And then after it, once they've connected with the patients, they say, hey, Kiera, you know what? You are one of my favorite patients. Like, we love having patients like you. We're going to be sending you a link to leave us a Google review. And honestly, like, I would love your feedback, because if you give the feedback, patients just like you will be attracted to our practice, and that's who we're looking for. So it's not like super, super intentional asking for a review and telling the patient why you want a review from that patient specifically. And that's how this office has been able to like grow their practice massively, by getting those reviews. So we made sure that they have that clickable link, but then also being really intentional behind asking for those reviews. And Mark, I use the example all the time of like, how often do you go to the grocery store and somebody gives you a receipt and says like, just, leave us a review? Do you get those ever, Mark?
Yeah. And then they're like, yeah, you get a free brownie bite if you if you leave a review next time. It's like, oh gee, let me hurry up and do that, because I can never get enough brownie bites.
Darn it. And this is what happens. I ask this question all the time in offices, like, how often do you actually leave the reviews off those receipts? It's very minimal. But if I were to say, Mark, like, you're one of my favorite patients, I'm going to be sending you a link. Like, we want patients just like you. And the way most of our patients are coming are reading our Google reviews. So if you could leave us a positive Google review, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a much more intentional art of asking for those reviews.
How much, when you were gamifying it for your practice that you owned, how much were you paying the team per review?
Yeah, so that was the other side of it. So we set up that whole structure, but then like we got real sneaky. We paid our employees $25 per review that they got that had their name in it. And there are pros and cons to having their name in it. Yeah. A pro is people then have, like, they can see that real people are working in the practice. It's a much more personal review. The con is if that person leaves, well, cool, all those reviews were for, Mark, who no longer works for the practice. Mm-hmm. So I think pros and cons, but we paid per person who left us a review if their name was in it. But then also we gave our office $10 to the office for any review that the office was given. So I paid out $35 per review if somebody's name was mentioned into it. And I had one hygienist who was real smart. She was super eager. And I remember paying her $500 one month for reviews, because she got all of her friends and told them like she'd split the money with them if they'd leave reviews. That girl made so much money that month. And I didn't care what she did, but she texted all of her friends, and lo and behold, we grew our reviews up exponentially by having it. And it became really fun. It was a challenge of who got the most reviews, and every day people were looking and we were sharing the reviews we got. And then with that $10 into the office pot, every month we would then divide up and go do an activity. So, it's kind of hard. Like, are we going to go to lunch? Are we going to go ice skating? Are we going to get to the spa? like, what do we want to do with this pot of money? So what I did is I had each team member write an activity that they wanted to do. We put it into a pot, like it didn't have my name attached to it. It just was a bunch of ideas. And then every month we just draw one of those ideas. Mm-hmm. And so that pot of money went to a random idea that somebody was excited to do. So that's how we broke it up, and it became really fun. We grew exponentially. We had over 100 reviews in just 3 months.
Wow. That's awesome. That's great. I love that. So what do you think, give us some steps. Can you walk us through some tactical steps before you and I sign off, so that these are all great ideas, but let's get it down to like step 1, do this, step 2, do that, step 3, do that.
You got it. Absolutely. So step 1, talk to your doctor. See if doctors, like if you're on board to pay your team members to get reviews. I personally thought it was a great investment of marketing money to invest in my team. So that's step 1, determine if you'll be paying your team members for a review or if you're just going to go for the review challenge. Step 2 is to set a deadline of how many reviews you want in a certain amount of time. I typically say you can add between 25 and 50 reviews within a 3-month time period, depending upon your office. That tends to be a pretty standard across the nation that we've been able to achieve. Once you have that deadline and the amount that your whole office is aiming towards, then you tell your whole office, all right, this is what we're doing. We need to be this exceptional office. People write reviews only for 2 things, really, really good or really, really bad. There's
true.
no middle ground that people write reviews for. That's it. So making sure we're the really, really good and going above and beyond. And then number 4, step 4 would be giving a script. And I have a script that I'm happy to share. Mark, I know, has a script, but get a script of how you're going to ask for this review. And then if you don't have a text message, we didn't have texting. So I made little like how to leave us a Google and Yelp review that I would hand out to my patients. Mm-hmm. So, hey, here's how you can do it. So whether it's a text message or it's an actual how to leave a Google Yelp review, whatever it is, having something tangible that you can give your patients tends to help team members not feel as awkward asking for that review. Mm-hmm. And then the 5th step would be I tracked my team members of how many reviews they asked for per day, every single day, to make sure. And the goal was they had to ask for at least 1 per team member per day. So those would be the 5 steps of how to do it. Mark, do you have any additional ideas or things or?
No, that is great. I love, you know how I am. I love checklists. I love systems that are written down. But the fact that you have a 5-point system, that's pretty sweet. I like that. Easy to follow.
Easy to follow. And that's how you can go from like, no reviews to doing it. And I will say there's a 6th little asterisk if you want, because it got real weird when we all started asking the same people for the same reviews.
Ah, good point. So I was going to ask about that.
So I guess step 6 would then be if you've got a big practice and you don't want to like overlap each other, in morning huddle, each person identifies who they'll ask for a review from. So we're not doing that awkward overlapping of each other asking for reviews.
I like it. So is this something that you think it's a good idea to revisit that every single day in the morning huddle, especially if it's
Absolutely.
An initiative that you're really pushing?
Absolutely, because it's just like any goal. The ones you read every single day, you actually achieve. And I also tracked our reviews. So if I'm trying to get 25 or 50 reviews every day on our whiteboard, we wrote how many of that goal we actually had accomplished. So we could constantly see the visual of, okay, we're at 5 of our 25, we're at 10 of our 25, we're at 15 of our 25. So like, okay, massive push, we can get there. So people could keep actively engaged within that.
I like it. Good stuff. Big takeaway is that it just has to be a very, very intentional process. You have to have kind of a goal in place. You have to have a system in place, and you have to track it. Tracking it seems like it's a really, really important part of it. Gamifying too. I really love the idea of gamifying and giving people reasons and a way to track their progress. It's a problem or a mistake that a lot of us CEOs make. This is from the dental practice owner's perspective here. And that is just saying, hey guys, we really got to work on our reviews. We really have to do a better job. We're only at 16. I want to get to 25. Go out there and get them, everybody is busy. Yeah. Everybody has their own priorities. They still have to do their own jobs. But if you make sure that you have, you give them the process, you define it very, very clearly, and you give them a way to track their progress, that's probably the best way you're going to get your results, I think.
Well, and I love that you just brought up that, dentists do say this, like, we need to get this goal. But from a team member's perspective, I'm like, but why? Like, okay, I'm on board with it, but like, how many more things are you going to come and tell me? Like, we need to do this. We need to do this. Like, obviously, but like, there are so many things that we need to do. How do I know which need to do I'm supposed to prioritize? Right. And that's where I say, like, the ones you want to prioritize, put on the whiteboard, make it into a game, be super intentional, because those are the goals you'll hit. And then you'll trickle on to the next one. But like, once you've been so intentional for 3 months, a lot of these habits will stick. And I never took off our reviews. We constantly had our reviews up on the whiteboard forever. So it always showed how many reviews we were getting. And every so often I'd make it more into like an intentional focus, but I never took it off the whiteboard because I wanted it to stay something that we worked on all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you guys, was that a big part of the reason that you guys were able to grow so fast in a short period of time? Was it reviews? Was it external marketing? How did you guys grow so fast?
I think it was a lot of different things. One of the biggest things is our office could do anything and everything. So we were like a one-stop shop practice. We didn't refer hardly anything out. We had amazing visibility. Like, I was literally on one of the busiest corners in Denver. But then we rocked. Like, we were that office that just had a good vibe. When you walked into the practice, like, we would make our patients laugh hysterically. We had amazing customer service. And it wasn't that like traditional, like bring you in, have it super comfortable, like a spa. Like when I say like we were a very non-traditional office, like we listened to Drake, like it felt like a rave. Our hygienist asked us finally to like tone down the music because it was so crazy. And I agree, like it was just wild in the morning. But we just had a really fun vibe that people enjoyed being there. It was just a good, like great paint, great pictures, like just a fun, hip vibe that you would want to go hang out, even if you didn't have to be there. And I think that that's what set us apart so much, that people would just write reviews because it was something different, something they weren't used to seeing. And it, like, people would tell us constantly, like, the vibe you have in this practice feels so good. Like, your team members just gel with each other. And I don't know, I did some really dumb, silly things, and the dentist was hilarious. I mean, we wore Heelys and like would go into exam rooms on Heelys. Like, we just did dumb, funny things. Sure. Probably like two girls who were like just fresh out of school, not knowing what we were doing. But that was what I believe gave us the greatest success really quickly. And the dentist was awesome. She did really well with her exams. Nice. A lot of lessons there. I like that. This is a great episode, Kiera. I really love hearing about this sort of thing and how other people do it from... there's a lot of dentists out there that are super, and their teams, excuse me, that are really successful with being able to gather reviews, and others out there that are just kind of perplexed by the whole process and have a really hard time with it. But I do think it's becoming more and more important. Everybody, whether or not they find out about you from their insurance company or from a friend or from an external marketing piece, everybody is checking you out online. They're checking your reviews. It's just our consumer culture nowadays. It's very, very simple to check, to see what the rest of the world has experienced going through that office previously. So I think more important than ever. Definitely. All right, Mark. Well, that's going to wrap up this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, that is another tidbit on how you become part of a Dental A team. Thanks, Mark, for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Great stuff. Thanks, Kiera. And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental A Team podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.